All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Today, we're going to talk about, well, like having a sixth sense. Um, just that kind of, the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, you sense fear, that awareness. So, one, you guys will notice we're live again. But I actually brought it inside, so it should be good and with no traffic noise. And Kevin's here, so thank God. We all know it was a little rough last week. I get distracted. So anyway, back, Kevin. What are the sixth sense? There are already five. What's going on here?
There's disagreement about the actual senses. So there's smell, touch, taste, sight, hearing, right? Those are the basics that we all know about. But there are three other ones. Hypothetically, I mean, there's dispute about it. One is balance. The other is movement. That's basically like you can touch something on your table in front of you, and then you close your eyes and you can still reach out and touch it. But some people don't actually have that sense. Like if like the power goes out and the lights go out, they just fall on the ground because they have to navigate all based on, sight. And then the other last sense that is disputed is internal. Basically, it's like your sense of hunger, your sense of like your heartbeat and things like that. Right. But I mean, whatever.
Yeah. So let me take it one step further. One of the things I came across in my research for this was they were talking about how AI knows if it's self-aware, which kind of touches on what you had just said, that kind of internal. So they were saying, how do you know if you're self-aware? And it was basically, I mean, this wasn't even somewhere I want to go. I didn't really take big notes on it, but it was like you just kind of know what you look like in your movements and how it's happening, like you kind of said. And like animals, so you see the dog go up to the reflection in the glass door, and it freaks out and wants to bark and be angry at the other dog, but even though it's himself,
right.
And they said they had the same thing with gorillas, and they were showing all these different things. And that's the thing. They're not aware that it's them. And so technically at that point, they're not self-aware.
Right.
So what they did is they took one of those red laser pointers and they gave it to a gorilla, and he was pointing at himself and would follow the laser pointer in the mirror and on himself, and then actually became self-aware that it was him.
Okay.
So it was kind of like, all right. But they were saying like that actually made a whole lateral movement of the animal, at that point that,
right.
Once you know what you look like and what you are, it's totally a different game. So anyway, I'll let you take it from there. I just had to get that in.
Yeah, self-awareness is well, it's like sex. Everyone thinks they're good at it, but really nobody knows what the fuck they're doing, It's one of those things. Everybody thinks they're very aware of themselves, but it can take a little bit of time. You have to kind of develop that sense, just like that gorilla, right? So basically, self-awareness, it predicts self-development and proactivity, helps decision making, leads to accurate self-reports, and helps develop self-control. So being aware of yourself and what you're doing is a big benefit to your life, right? So starting with if you're trying to work towards having a good gut instinct, a good sixth sense, the first thing you have to start with is working on your self-awareness. So some of the things that you do with self-awareness, ways to develop it, every once in a while think, what am I doing day to day, minute by minute? Because a lot of us go through life on autopilot, and that's normal. I mean, it's good Otherwise, you'd go insane, if you're thinking about every single little thing you do.
Oh, I like to
But
stress about things, but
yeah, but you get up in the morning, you make your coffee, or get your keys, make sure you got all your stuff, get in the car, start heading to work, and it's that's all that stuff is on autopilot. If you have to every minute of your life think about what you're doing next, you're gonna go insane. Um, Another thing about work on your self awareness is um, being aware of what you're feeling. You know what I mean? Are you anxious? Are you angry? Are
I
you
always try and get in touch with my feelings. So
yeah,
that's
it's hey, listen, man. This is a touchy-feely podcast. Anyone that's listened to this podcast knows we're very much into our feelings. Um,
they call me Chuck Sensitive. So,
I know. Everybody thinks you're a very sensitive guy. Uh, and then another part of it, self-aware work and your self-awareness is working on your blind spots. What are the things that you miss? Is your wife always pissed off at you and you don't know why? Maybe that's something that you need to work on.
or
I don't
maybe
know.
that's
I
just
mean, I
how
haven't
wives
worked on it
are.
yet, but
Maybe that's just how wives are.
could be. Could be. So once you start working on your self-development, you can start like developing you can start developing some sort of gut instinct, some sort of, you know, some sort of maybe not intuition, but you know, relying on your other senses to give you input and, you know, trust your feelings. What do you think about that, Chuck? I know you were talking about some sort of like
Oh, I went deep in
reading
this
minds
one.
and shit.
Oh, dude. So you guys remember all those CIA studies, and actually, I would take it one further and even go. I don't know. I mean, I'm maybe the only guy who reads like self improvement books, and I mean, you guys, I'm sure, are all reading survival and how to be a master hunter, sniper, whatever. But like things like Napoleon Hill or like Rich Dad Poor Dad, that Robert Kiyosaki guy, right?
Right,
And the self-aware. So a lot of them talk about developing like a mastermind group and how you have greater success when you kind of are in tune with things. And that's actually one of the things that got me thinking about this whole sixth sense thing. And he was talking about how, and Tesla, Nikola Tesla was big on that and just, sensing the vibrations of the world. He said that the world had that we have a perception between 4 and 6 hertz, and actually gigahertz, just multiplies. It's the same, the frequency is the same, and so that's why people are so worried about that 5G, right?
right,
They're like, oh, we're gonna have these antennas just fucking up our minds left and right. It kind of goes back to that harp and all that, because there are senses and feelings and things that you have that you're just not aware. And one of the things Napoleon Hill always talked about was he would be like, when you really focus on something, you need to be excited and you get the vibration, and the more vibration involved in it, the more in tune and aware you are. So I was looking at that and the different stuff and trying to, get a better understanding. And well, my research ended up taking me to the Eye of Horus. Now you
all
remember
right,
the Egyptians, right? They had that little third eye, and that was, the Buddhists, the Hindus, right? Is it Hindu
mm-hmm,
that have the third eye? And a lot of religions, you see the pictures and different cultures have that third eye. The Egyptians had that. They always had like the rulers would have like a snake or something come off. It was almost like an antenna, out of their
right,
forehead in the center, or they would have things that actually like had a third eye there. And that's a thing. And it's like, why are people so caught up in that? But there's also that feeling that you get before like bad news comes, or that feeling of being watched. How much has
right,
that been a thing, where you're like, oh, I think somebody's watching me? I think that we can get in tune and pay attention to these things where you can develop it a little bit, where you have that heightened sense. They always talk about the Indians out on the trail and that kind of thing, and they would just kind of know. and it just seemed like magical to the rest of us. But it's, it's a thing. There's something there. And I'm not necessarily talking about psychic and mystical and angels and nonsense, whatever. That's not my point. My point is that we actually have perception that's not just the basic senses that we have. And it's kind of been proven out. And that's what's kind of cool. That's what I was seeing. So they experiment, and in 1980, and a guy's name was Walter Baker, and he was in Manchester, England, and he blindfolded people, and he took them out on a windy road, and they would drive all around, and then he would let them out of this. They were in like the back of a van or whatever, and they would let them out, and they would be like, "Well, which way is home?" And every time, 100%, the people could say, "Oh yeah, it's that direction." Now you're like, "Oh, well, you can look at the sun and see which way north and south," but you don't know if you drove south or north or whatever.
Right.
So, right, I mean that's pretty cool. So he was like, "Yeah, I made this big discovery, and I'm really, we are affected by magnetic poles." That was his, thing, that we have a sense, a consciousness of it. And he actually, tried the reverse of that, where he made the vehicle like a Faraday cage and took them out, and nothing. They had no idea which direction home was. It was pretty
Really?
freaking weird.
Yeah,
So
that is
then
weird.
he came back to the States and was like, "Yeah, I'm going to prove it to all the big universities and Harvard and Yale." And they all got together and they came out and they recreated his study, and it didn't work at all. And they were like, "You're a quack, you don't know anything." Well, it turns out later on what they put together, because they've redone the study and checked it out, is it's because of all they were saying, the radio station antennas and the things like that. They didn't have that in England at the time where he
Right.
was, and they did in all the populated areas where they went to reproduce it here. And it really affected, people's perception. And
Right.
to me, that even validates it even more, that it can be disrupted.
Right.
I mean, that kind of, you prove it with the Faraday cage thing, but that's the idea, it proves that whole connection. So then you have let me think where it goes here. So they did that test. Oh, the dogs, right? So we've talked about before that a dog, you see it turn in circles before it poops.
Right.
That's the thing. It's trying to like align itself and figure out so a dog, again, I think it can be disrupted by the signals in the air, but in theory, a dog always faces north to south when it takes a shit. So, secret of the pros right
All right,
there.
I'm gonna have to pay attention because my dogs are shitting all the time, man. I'll just have to
You
watch
just have to
with
watch.
this. Um,
And that's why that circle,
right.
Go ahead.
But there is a lot of stuff going on with MK Ultra that it seems like it's made up. You know what I mean? It seems like it can't be real. But there were people that provably did do certain things. The problem was most of these things, it wasn't strong enough to actually have valid
Right.
results all the time. But they claimed that there was a guy who was able to. They put him in a room with a goat, and he's able to just think about it and make the goat have a heart attack.
Yes.
They said it fucked the guy up though, and he wasn't really able to do anything else for like 6 months afterwards to like recover from whatever it was that he did to make that goat have a heart attack. But so that's not like an effective thing that you can do if you want to assassinate somebody. But
Right.
there are things that that they claim to have found people with real sixth senses, or real what would you call that? Some sort of mental powers, telekinesis, or
Telepathy, or
yeah, exactly. So that stuff's always really interesting to me, but also I just don't believe any of them.
Oh, Kevin. So one of the things in a lot of the CIA studies was they would take like a deck of cards and flip it out, and they would go through. The thing is, people could guess They said on average with all their studies with people who said they had some kind of ability was 50% of the time they would be right guessing a card as far as they said as far as 100 miles away in
Hmm.
a room. They could flip over cards and they could be right like I said, 50% of the time. Now 50%, you're like, well, that's whatever, but that's out of 52 cards
Right.
that
Right.
you
So
could
it's really
be,
one
hey,
in
that's a
52
two
is
is
your
right.
chance.
That's a two in, a two of spades or whatever. And that's pretty freaking impressive. I got to
Hmm.
tell you. And then imagine if we kind of develop these things. And so a lot of people believe that this is a sense that we possibly had as humans and it's kind of just become dormant.
Hmm.
Like you think of, I think I can honestly believe that we used to have a better sense of smell, and then through evolution, it's kind of gone away.
Right.
I think when it was, a priority for hunting and self awareness, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
No, again, genetically, you can argue, well, yeah, but it's actually been by natural selection. The people with that were not favored any more than anyone else. So it wasn't tuned anymore or developed. So it's maybe gone away. I get that.
Right.
I understand. But it's something that's there. I wonder if the potential we could tap back into that. Um, so, I started to talk about that eye of Horus. So there's a gland behind your eyes. That's why, you get this third eye kind of
Right.
thing, right? It's just above, like right in the center of your forehead, maybe even a little low in the center of your
Hmm.
forehead. And it's shaped like a pine cone. So they actually call it the pineal gland.
All
And
right.
it's the first word is like pine, not like you were
Right.
thinking, right? Yeah, a PI, not PE, right? Okay. Because you're led by a whole different gland, Kevin. You work in
Yeah.
a different
I don't know what
operation,
you're
all right?
talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about right now.
Okay. So it's shaped like a pine cone and just behind the eyes and in the center of the eyes there. And believe it or not, this gland, when they dissect the brain and cut it right in half, it's shaped just like the eye of Horus, the cavity. Now, the
Right.
gland itself is like that circle, like that you think it as the eyeball. But the
Right.
way that the shape is, it's that eye of Horus, that, the canal that holds it kind of thing. And so it just seems like the Egyptians and the people who came up with that stuff were thinking in the same, vein, right? When they
Right.
came up with it. That's all. That's the connection there. But there was another guy, this guy Walter Rawls. Now he made a mask with a magnet, and it basically would put the magnet right over blocking that gland, and he would it was just like a headband, right,
Right.
with a magnet right in the center, and he'd put it on. Now I don't know if his theory was that it was going to amplify it or
Hmm.
that it was going to block it, like retract it,
Right.
like wearing a tinfoil hat, right? Wouldn't that, that's that same thing, right?
Hmm.
Um, so he would put this on and he would spend 3 hours a day, or sorry, I made up the 3 hours. He would just spend time wearing it. I actually think it was 30 minutes a day is what I
Hmm.
read. And he would sit there and just kind of relax and focus on things. And one of the times while he's doing it, he saw like an apparition come into the room, and it was like a ghost or whatever, and he's like, well, it's weird, freaked him out a little bit, but whatever, and he kept doing it. Sure enough, about a week later, same apparition comes back, except it's a lot clearer because the theory is that he's kind of developed his sense and in
Right.
tuneness, and he was able to perceive it a little bit clearer. Well, about a week after that, he was sitting there doing the same experiment, and in his mind's eye, the the walls all around him kind of just melted away. And
Hmm.
he said that he was able to see outside, and there was like a picnic table or something like that, and he saw the apparition and another one sitting together at a table, and they saw him staring at them, and they kind of got spooked and got up and ran away. And for whatever reason, this freaked the guy out, and he just stopped doing the experiments altogether. It was like, that's it, I'm done, you know?
Uh,
So just, I mean, there's always stupid ghost stories and whatever. I'm just saying there may be more out there that you can kind of perceive. And I'm not trying to get people to believe in ghosts. And that's, that's not where I'm going with this. But it just kind of creates like a different, there's more out there than what we see. The Hindus believe that the eye holds the knowledge of the past, present, and future, right?
mm-hmm.
So what if you were seeing remnants of just the past, of
Right.
there were people there before, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And another thing, like the Hindus, they do a lot of teaching where it's our minds are very scattered. And it was funny, I was thinking about, how true is that now that we like stare at our phones with TikTok and whatever, where
Right.
you're like, oh, look, hot chick in yoga pants. Oh, look, now I'm learning about survival and prepping. Oh, look, now I'm working at a car mechanic shop and I'm watching something else.
Mm-hmm.
And, we are just like all over the place. And
Right.
I think having that, so that's kind of how I wanted to, take this is we could focus a little bit. If we kind
Yeah.
of reined everything in and kind of just took away some of the distractions, how much when you're out walking, people talk about like maybe if you don't want to go into all the kind of extra sensory perception with your normal senses that you have, your hearing, your eyes, whatever, you just see things. You see a guy in the crowd that kind of looks off, and you see these different things, or you hear a noise that you've heard before. You hear a faint gun click, being cocked back or something like that. Being aware and not so full of distractions, actually tuning in to the sounds that you need to recognize, can we maybe perceive a little bit more? And I
Right.
think that's really what it comes down to. Can we get away from all the noise and the distractions and focus on what's actually happening around us? You see these videos of people, they're staring at their cell phone and they like walk into the street or they walk into a pole and everyone's like, that's funny, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like a statement of our society right now, like
Right.
that's the thing. We're very, caught
Yeah.
into
Well, I think
things in ourselves.
in the world of big data, gut instincts get like a bad rap.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean that is a real thing. I mean, like, have you ever been, say about to get on an elevator, and you see somebody in that elevator, and you're like, I don't know, I'll wait for the next one.
Yeah.
You know, you can kind of sense when you're dealing with somebody that you're not going to want to. It's not going to be a good outcome, or there's a chance it's not going to be a good outcome. And you'll never know. You'll never know if you don't get on that elevator. You'll never know if that was smart or not. But sometimes it's better to take that gut instinct and just run with it a little bit.
Right.
It can tell you, if you're in danger, if you're in a bad situation. And I don't know that that's necessarily like ESP or anything like that. I think that's, just uh,
Right.
spending time around people. You get to
Exactly.
you get a vibe off of some people that is not, that's not a good one, and you stay away.
Right.
Um, so there's some ways to develop this,
I like it.
to work on it. So uh, th- there are a few steps, things you can do to kind of heighten your senses. The first one is spending time meditating. I used to do that a little. Used to do that quite a bit, actually. I haven't done it for a while, and it is some sort of you know hippie bullshit most of the time. I think most of that stuff is hippie bullshit. And there's an amount of introspection that just leads you down a rabbit hole and makes you just full of yourself instead of actually improving yourself.
Right.
Um, one is following your gut when you do have a gut feeling. You might realize that gut instinct, was actually on point.
Yeah.
Instead of just ignoring it, or instead of doing whatever, just following what your gut says, and you might be pleasantly surprised by what you find out. How about doing a daily body scan? So
Yeah.
what that would be is once a day, every day, just sit down quietly and think about how you're feeling, how your body's doing. Are you anxious? Are you angry? Are you whatever, hungry? Go through and like a checklist through your body and make sure that you're kind of on point, not so distracted that you can't see what's going on around you when it's happening. Another one is spending time outside.
Yes.
A lot of people, you don't think about it, but a lot of people, you leave your house, you get in your car, you drive to your office, you sit in your office, and then you get back in your car and drive back to your house, and you're never outside. You're never out in nature. You're never out in the world, and it can be helpful. And to go along with that is doing a technology fast. Um, you know, I think a lot of people, myself included, carry a smartphone around with them all the time.
Yeah.
And it's always fucking beeping and ringing and buzzing and letting you know you have Facebook notifications and all that sort of stuff. And it's always distracting you. It's always like trying to draw you in. And,
Right.
I mean, that's how those phones are developed, to try and get you to use it.
Right.
And, it's most of the time, like Chuck said, most of the time it's a waste of time. You're scrolling through TikTok, you're watching YouTube videos. You're not actually learning anything. You're just distracting your mind with it.
Right. And that's, I mean, nobody's playing the high and mighty card. I'm not trying to say that I don't. And it's funny because I don't know if I use the excuse of, well, I'm trying to keep the prepping badass thing growing, like,
Right.
well, I need to, have stuff, content on our Facebook page or whatever, which I don't even know why Facebook's like hammering us down with, trying to ban everything and whatever. I'm surprised that anybody's watching this right now, because Facebook, like, my distribution of a video or whatever, when we put one out, is like one person saw this. It's not
Hmm.
even how many liked it. It's like
Right.
Facebook's like, no, you're shut down, because I apparently put out too much fake news. You know how
Oh,
that
yeah.
is. Chuck's full of fake news.
Well,
Um,
Mark Zuckerberg says nobody gets shadow banned, Chuck. So I don't know what you're talking about.
well, they actually no, because it wasn't a shadow. I'm in the open. They were like, dude, you're fucked. We no. Yeah, dude, let me tell you. So first, to back Kevin up though, with what he said there a minute ago, is like, think about when you sit out in nature. Think of hunting season, right? And especially, it's funny. A lot of the guys I know now will go out and they'll actually be on their phone looking at like TikTok the entire time while they're hunting and shit like that. So we don't even have that true nature experience
Right.
anymore. It's really fucking brutal. But think of how much, when you do pay attention in nature and the sounds around you. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a mystical or something, hey, I have heightened, whatever, but learn how, I know when I sit out for 10 minutes, all of a sudden nature comes back to life, right? And it's
Hmm.
not just my perception of it. Like, as soon as things are normal and peaceful, they go back to making noise and moving about their business and whatever.
Right.
But you all of a sudden become very attuned. Oh, that's a squirrel. That's who's making that noise. That's what's going
Hmm.
on. All that rustling
Right.
that sounds like a herd of elephants in the woods.
Hmm.
That's just a squirrel. And oh, look at that bird over there. And oh, the one that makes that horrible noise, that's over there. It's funny. Sorry, I have to sidetrack. Crows, right? They make all weird noises.
Hmm.
But let me tell you about crows. Just sorry, it'll annoy you, but crows freaking are like so freaking smart. They did all these studies. Kind of goes back to this sixth sense thing. We can kind of tie it together a little bit.
Right.
They have in both California and Japan. So I'm assuming these two crows haven't met each other, right?
Hmm.
They're probably, from different places and don't hang out. In both places, crows take nuts. Now you're going to like this. They watch the street lights. When they're red, they go down and they set a nut in the street. They go back up. They wait for a car to run it over and crack it, wait for the next red light, and then go back down and pick it up. These are the kind of things that we're missing by not paying
Hmm.
attention to nature. That's all I'm saying. That's a true story. They did real studies on this. And like a bunch of crows are doing it. It's not just one or two.
Right.
But they're recognizing traffic signals. And so you're telling me that crows can do that, but you're telling me there's no possibility that we could have some kind of extra awareness. I'm just saying it's possible. There might be more to the world than what we perceive.
Hmm.
Um, they also said a study at Caltech, I think it was somewhere, one of the colleges in California. I'm pretty sure it was Caltech, that they did a study and that they could remember faces. And so the people were so worried doing the study about being stalked by the crows because they said as far as 5 years, they ended up determining that a crow would remember you and
Oh
like
yeah.
fuck with you if you fucked with it. And so they used to wear a Dick Cheney mask whenever they went in to go do
A
it.
Dick Cheney mask, really?
Yeah, who
So now
knew,
Dick
right?
Cheney has fucking crows follow him
Crows
everywhere, huh?
all over the world are like, yeah. Now they actually had two. They had a Dick Cheney mask and they had a caveman mask. And they
Okay.
said that it was one of those things where even the offspring who had never seen the caveman mask, but had the parents who had seen the
Right.
caveman mask, would be pissed off when the caveman guy came in and fucked with them. Like
Hmm.
before he fucked with them, they'd be like, "Oh, you're the fucking caveman guy. I know about you." So maybe just cavemen are terrifying. Yeah, I don't know if that,
I mean, that's also a thing, you know.
but yeah. So I'm just saying, there's a lot more going on out there. There's back to the animals. When in 2004 we had that big tsunami, right? That killed like 300,000 people or something.
Hmm.
They're saying like none or almost any animal that was free to roam, no animals died in that whole event because they all knew to,
They
get
all
the hell
left.
out of there. And they were giving like elephant tours and the elephants. Now, again, I'm not saying it's some mystical whatever. They're saying with the elephants, they have the big pads on the feet. Maybe they felt the vibrations from the earthquake or they
Hmm.
sense that, and they have the big ears. Maybe they just heard the noise of the wave. I mean, who knows, right? I don't know what's going on. I'm just saying that by paying attention, somehow all these animals were able to put together, hey, this isn't a good place to be. I need to get the hell out of here. And apparently none of the people had that sense.
Yeah.
So what are the odds that all these different animals can tune into something and we can't? That's what I guess we're getting at, is that maybe you need to kind of see about developing these senses.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that, when you spend enough time in nature outside, you can kind of get an idea of things that are happening just based on the sounds you hear and the sounds you don't hear.
Yes.
Um, I was outside a few months ago, and I heard some birds squawking, and so I went over and kind of took a look at where I was hearing the sound from, and those birds, they were uh they were trying to give a squirrel heads up that he was about to get jacked. Because I saw my cat's tail just like kind of waving back and forth up above the grass, and then that was it. Squirrel was done.
And
And
he should have heeded the
he
warning,
should
huh?
have
If
been
he'd had
listening to
the
this crows.
right.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense though that there's a lot of other things around that are watching out and doing things for you. And I think a lot of people, 1,000 years ago, people probably had a good sense of what those sounds meant,
Right.
and what it could be, something coming through the woods towards you, something leaving, something running away from you, something warning other people, other birds, other animals that you're coming. um, we've all heard that where we go outside and walk through the woods and all of a sudden some birds start squawking near us, letting everybody know that we're around.
Right.
um, but I mean there's a lot of stuff that that a few hundred years ago would probably be a lot more aware of those sorts of things going on around us than we are today necessarily.
Right. Well, I mean, we even see it with soldiers, guys who've been over to, Iraq and whatever, and just basically been in combat situations is I guess what I'm getting at. But they recognize when you're in the streets and you see something off, what Chris Kyle in the movie, or maybe it was just in his book, but anytime he sees somebody on a moped, he's like, oh, you
Yeah.
get that. But there's little signals that you get when something's off, and it may be the way people's eyes are when they're shifty and looking at something else. Just think about how people are, how they're operating. And hey, where's this guy's attention? Everybody else is looking at their phone and looking at whatever. Look at the crowd, read the crowd. And this guy is just looking around constantly and fidgety and
Yeah.
uneasy. And you can
Hmm.
spot, hey, he's the guy that's going to be something I need to be paying attention to.
Right.
And that's all part of this. It's all just being in tune with what's going on around you. And, but I will say, in defense of the naysayers, when I look at animals through my thermal scope from 50 yards or something, they have no idea they're being watched.
Mm.
They're just like dumb and happy. I gotta say though, it kind of seems like the fox might like real skittish. The first one I got, he was all like happy go lucky, like nothing. That guy didn't have a care
Hmm.
in the world and was like, yeah, la di da. But now, after I got the one, the rest of them are like, I think somebody's watching me. So
Uh-huh.
you never know. But I know when I go after the bunnies are like, I have no idea
They got
what's
no
going on.
idea, huh?
They're like, I'm just eating clover and I'm happy. And yeah, I'm just saying that might be a thing. And I just watch them for fun. I'm not shooting animals. That would be horrible.
Right. That would be
Right.
horrible. I would
Right.
never do something like
So
that.
that's what I got. So, and for those of you who are curious about the whole third eye thing, I did see a video how to instantly open your third eye. I'm just saying there is some stuff on YouTube. You didn't have to pay for it. It was free. It was just YouTube.
Uh-huh.
I'm just saying
And did
that
you
may be
instantly
something.
open your third eye? Did he watch that
I was
movie and
I
now
was
you
a
can
little afraid. She was like, "You
didn't
might be scared to do this." Now she did have a procedure to close your third eye, and it
Oh, okay.
involved
Well,
using
that's
your
good.
finger and pulling the lid down.
Oh, really? Really?
So you may want to check that out. That may be a thing, right?
Yeah. Also,
Um,
it sounds like a crazy person.
well, yes, that may have been the case, but what if it's not, Kevin? Did you ever think of that?
Jeez.
So let me, yeah, that's basically what I got about that. But let me give you a quick update on Facebook. So we have that survival prepping page. It was the prepping badass page, and then they wouldn't let us advertise with it because badass is such a bad word, and
Mm,
we don't put bad things on the internet. We're not about that. So
right.
okay. So then it became the survival prepping page or whatever it is. And it'll be in the show notes. You can link to it. So all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we must have got some kind of nervous Nelly or something who found his way to the page and wants to, be up my ass. So this jackass, dude, they were reporting. So they were like, this page, and one of you guys shared to the group that it said, don't share this cartoon post because this page is known for sharing, fake news and misleading
Uh-huh.
content. So I'm like, all right, what's going on here? And I click it, and it said, yes, we have 2 instances of fake news that we found.
That's
And
it?
you're like, oh, wait, it's you're saying that's it. The first one is from 4 years ago. Who the fuck finds a post from 4 years ago? 4 years ago, there was a news story about Kaepernick that like he was making a deal with somebody or didn't, or like he had a deal with Nike, and who knows. I didn't even watch it. I just was like, okay, whatever, and I
Hmm.
deleted that because I don't give a shit. Who the fuck even knows who Kaepernick is anymore, right?
Right.
So then there was one, oh, the other one was the China one. From, remember a couple of months ago where um it showed tanks rolling down the streets in China.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Yep.
because so what it was there was actually a true story happening at the time of um people banked people running on banks in China.
Right.
And what it was because the the new the real estate and the banks were giving mortgages on new properties being built, but then they weren't building the properties. So people were
Hmm.
getting upset and going back and saying, look, you got to let me out of this mortgage because you're not doing anything and you've tied
Right.
up my money and made a commitment. And so they were getting upset. So apparently the footage may or may not have been, because I wasn't there. And guess what? The guy who had a problem with it wasn't there either. And the
Hmm.
people they got their information from may or may not have been there. So the news reporter was like, yeah, look, this is footage from, the military busting it up, whatever. What I think is, I think the footage was from some bullshit parade or something or another. And I
Hmm.
think that the government or the military had gone in and done it. But yeah, you try and film the military doing something bad in China. Good luck with
Yeah.
that.
And
It
it ain't
doesn't
gonna, it
work out.
ain't gonna work out.
So, but the thing is, the evidence of the guy the guy complaining was that, well, we asked people in China and they said nothing bad happened. So we know that's true. And I'm like,
Obviously,
ask
evidence.
people
That's
in China,
evidence right there.
ask people in China about Tiananmen Square, and they will
Hmm.
tell you that nothing happened. So
Yeah.
obviously, it'd be fake news, right? I mean, it's just stupid, the argument. But anyway, that was the whole thing. So now they're like, we've reduced, your flow or whatever of the page and how much people see, and so they're out to get us, and who knows. But I'm just saying, if you can share any posts from the Prepping Badass group, it'd be great. I try and just post nonsense now, so that way there's no fake news. It's all just
Right.
memes about the ATF being fucktards. So, that's a thing. But, hey, to each their own, right?
Yeah. So this is our first live stream here.
I
Um,
don't
we
think
haven't done one yet, so let us know if you guys enjoyed it, or if you guys, and I can see, people are posting on here, and so obviously some people are actually watching it live, but you know let us know what you think about it, if it's worthwhile, if it's worth keep us keep doing it, or just sticking to the podcast.
so. It really isn't much more effort on our part. So I think we can put this all together. Like, even if two people enjoy it, it might still be worth doing. I don't know.
Hmm.
I mean, pretty much we record our podcasts about 9:15. Well, we sit down together at like 9:15, and then me and Kevin ramble on for a half hour before we start. So it's probably coming in around 9:30, 9:40. But,
Hmm.
I'd say if you kept an eye out on Saturday mornings around that time, it might pop up. Something to be aware of if it's something you're interested in. Otherwise, I would say you can email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. We have a website, turns out, preppingbadass.com, where we have an email list where we actually could keep you up to date with things that are going on. So that way, when Facebook just shuts us down, we can tell you where we are and how you can get in touch with us and what's going on.
Right.
Otherwise, we're always out on the iTunes and iHeartRadio and Spotify and all that other shenanigans. So, with that, stay safe, and we will talk to you guys next week. Appreciate you guys joining us. Somehow I figure out this off. Um, I don't even know. They're still watching us. I don't even know. End stream. I got it.